Barakatuh. Tonight's lesson is on Al-Lu'lu' Marjan فيما اتفق عليه الشيخان of Sheikh Muhammad Fuad Abdul Baqi, may Allah have mercy on his soul. The compilation of hadiths from the Sahihain, the two most authentic books of hadith and the two most sound books as a whole after the Quran al-Kareem. So we're in Kitab al-Hajj, and obviously Kitab al-Hajj, FYI, is a fa'idah for any student of knowledge, and even a layman, is going to be from the longest of chapters. The chapter of Hajj, the study of Hajj, Bab al-Hajj, Kitab al-Hajj, is in most cases going to be min atwal al-kutub, from the longest of chapters. And one of the reasons behind that is, obviously, it's one of the pillars of Islam. Just like Salah is, and Zakah is, and Siyam is, and the Shahadatain are. However, the Hajj is a major manifestation of the strength of Islam, the power of Islam, and the life of Islam. Let alone the fact that there are so many different things that can take place and happen during Hajj. There are many variables and uncertainties due to the nature of the gathering. People from all over in one place, so on and so on and so forth. And perhaps this is one of the reasons, or another reason behind it is, there are many things which are included in Hajj from other kutub and abwab. Because when you make Hajj, you're going to need to pray. So the ahkam of the salah are going to be included in Kitab al-Hajj. And there are things pertaining to one's money and payment, kafarat, atonements, expiations. So there are going to be masail from Kitab al-Zakat during Hajj. And there are times in which Hajjis must fast. So there's going to be masail pertaining to Siyam. And there's also Safar in most cases. Not all, but most people are traveling. So there's Kitab of Qasr al-Salah, etc., the Musafirin, right? And there's so many other things. As-Sayd wa-Dhaba'ih, hunting and slaughtering. The animals that you can and cannot hunt. Fishing versus land hunting. The expiations that are due if you hunt on land. If you hunt a rabbit, what do you have to pay in exchange for that rabbit? If you hunt a larger animal, وَهَكَذَا. Now, if someone offers you a rabbit, offers you food, can you take it or not? We explained that. So then there is Kitab al-At'imah, the book of foods. What foods are lawful to eat, hunting and slaughtering, such as hadi. Now, the ahkam of hadi. So these are some of the points that show why Kitab al-Hajj is oftentimes one of the longest chapters and oftentimes one of the most complex. And this is why some of the earlier ulama, some of the earlier salaf, they would say, if you want to see how strong a faqih is, if you want to see his foothold, his standing, then look at his manasik. They would say this. If you want to see he's really got fiqh, he's good like that, or he's, perpetrating, faking the funk, or not even faking the funk, he just doesn't, have that much fiqh like that. It's okay, it's good here, there, it's on the surface. But the true fiqh of the faqih, they would say, look at the what? فَانظُرْ هُ فِي الْمَنَاسِكِ. They would say, look at his hajj rituals. And then you'll see what? How strong or how weak he was. And that is why the person who was a mufti in Mecca, no doubt, he enjoyed great status. Wasn't a mufti in this part, Kufa, Basra, Yemen, here, there, but in Mecca, there are people coming from around the world to perform Hajj and Umrah around the year round. They're going to what? They're going to ask him, and he needs to be razor blade sharp. And he needs to know the ins and the outs of the manasik. Okay? Khair, inshallah. Anyone who's made Hajj, I'm sure many of you brothers, if not all of you brothers, have made Hajj before. You know how hectic and chaotic things can become during Hajj. And how many things can fall out of sync and unprepared, unexpected problems can happen during Hajj. And the need for someone who has solid, sound knowledge, let alone someone who has the in-depth ilm, to make things easy and simple and to grant you relief. Ah, Sheikh, I left my mother back here. We didn't stone until it was 12 a.m. Da da da. Can I go back? The bus. Da 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 da. Oh, is my hajj valid? My mother, she's crying. I lost the purse. I had to leave. I had to come out my haram. You say what? La haraj. Khalas. What does that person do when you give them that answer? You give them that fatwa in the tents, walking on a bus, outside of the bathroom. They may jump for joy. They may hug you, squeeze you to death out of happiness that, alhamdulillah, my hajj is still valid. I thought it was ruined. Someone else told me my hajj was batil. Someone else said I have to slaughter 20 camels and make hajj next 3 years. And you said it's done, it's over. People, they feel good. And if you don't believe this, then make hajj. And those who have made hajj, I'm sure they've what? They've seen this before. The power of fiqh. The virtue of knowledge of the deen and the rulings of the deen. And of course, no one can make things easy and simple and quick, shoot from the hip, except someone who understands it well. And you have a level of mastery which allows them to answer it simply, easily, on the spot, without no differences, without no khilafat. This hadith, fulan, fulan, wa fulan, wa huwa munqat'. Yajuz. La yajuz. Wa hakada. You understand this? So these are some of the different virtues of studying hajj and teaching the hajj. And if you read the lives of the Salaf Salih, you'll find many different stories like this. Fulan was the mufti of hajj, even though they hated the way he looked. And the ruler himself said, I don't like the way he looks. I don't like the way he looks. His nose, his lips, his lineage is not pleasing to have this high status. However, he's the best faqih that we have. You understand this? He comes from this background. He's Persian or whatever the case may be. The son of a slave woman. The descendant of a slave tribe. He was adopted into the tribe. You get the point I'm trying to make? But because he is the strongest faqih, he will be granted that status. And they would have no choice but to submit to his fiqh. We don't like him. Jahiliyyah, his background, the way he looks, his skin, but what? Hey. That's from the virtue of what? Fiqh. And as Allah says, narfa'u, that we raise in levels and degrees whom we will. And that Allah Azza wa Jalla is what? He is wise and what? And He knows all things. He knows who to give it to and who not to give it to and when to give it to them. And He knows the people that once He blesses with knowledge, what they're going to do with that knowledge. And those who don't want to spread it and share it and are stingy and miserly. And those who don't want good for the people versus those who are generous with the knowledge and they want good for the people and they're qualified to take on that task of leading the people on hajj and guiding them, teaching them and answering their questions and reminding them in that blessed place and that blessed time. Khayr inshallah. So chapter number 42, it states, Nawawi's chapter heading says, Babu jawaz al-tawafi ala ba'irin wa ghayrihi wa istilam al-hajri bi mihjanin wa nahwihi lil-rakib. حديث ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال طاف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في حجة الوداع على بعير يستلم الركن بمحجن. حديث أم سلمة رضي الله عنها قال شكوت إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أني أشتكي قال طوفي من وراء الناس وأنت راكبة فطفت ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي إلى جنب البيت يقرأ بالطور وكتاب مسطور. Chapter number 42 says, permissibility of doing tawaf, riding on the back of a camel or any other thing, and to touch the black stone with a stick or any other similar thing. The permissibility of making tawaf, not walking, but riding. It's permissible to make the tawaf riding on a beast or other than a beast. Go-kart, huh? Allahu Akbar. A motorcycle, bicycle, skateboard. What's the new thing the kids ride? Hoverboard. Hoverboard is a new one they have. Allahu Akbar, huh? طيب. Helicopter, mumkin, a drone. طيب. Al-Muhim is this is an example of one of the permissible things and perhaps one of the recommended things that have become obsolete, that no longer are applicable, like we explained in other classes. You can't walk into the Masjid al-Haram on a camel in 2021. You can't walk into the Masjid al-Haram with all other things less than a camel. You can't wear your shoes, or if you wanted to wear hoofs or whatever the case may be, or etc., let alone what? A camel. And of course, there are obvious reasons behind this. The crowd, people don't necessarily travel by camels as much. I've seen people on camels on the road before. In my travels overseas, literally, at a traffic light, with a beautiful white camel, with big hooves and the nose and the mouth, with the decorated little tassels and the saddle and a cart behind it at a traffic light. Next to them is a car, a Ford, a Helix, right? And there's a what? Don't bump into my camel, Yahi. All right? May have road rage. Move your camel out the way. No, you move your car out the way. Tell you, what heck of that? Just like they have horses, people take rides, romantic rides on horses. All right? What heck of that? Even to this day, it's a novelty. But there's some people who may travel by camel. But how many people, right? How many people today in Saudi Arabia? So, the concept of this is something that has become obsolete. It is no longer going to be applicable, for better or for worse. Khairan, inshallah. However, does the ruling still apply with regards to riding? And that also applies, or that the same is the same with regards to a bicycle. I don't think they would allow you to Masjid al-Haram with a bicycle for obvious reasons. Somebody can get injured, somebody can get hurt. Wheelchairs, whether the people need those wheelchairs or not. So technically speaking, one could say it's permissible to make tawaf in a wheelchair, even if you don't need it. I just want to ride around. I don't feel like walking. My feet are tired. My feet hurt. Or I just want to implement this sunnah, mathalan, right? Khairan, inshallah. And of course, the wheelchairs, people's toes getting jammed and ran over. People hiring themselves to carry old ladies around, or sick or weaker men or injured men, etc. Alhamdulillah, halal hustle, right? They take care of those people that make hajj. We've all seen that before. You can find it easily, pay someone a few riyals or whatever, they take you around on hajj, right? So the permissibility of riding. Okay. So that's the first part of the chapter. Second is touching the black stone with a stick. If you can't physically, touch it yourself or kiss it yourself. And we explained that before with regards to the Yemeni corner and the black stone. Making sujood on a black stone, right? We explained that in the previous chapters. So the two hadiths mentioned. The first is reported by Abdullah ibn Abbas. Narrated Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with them both. And in his last hajj of the Prophet performed the tawaf of the Kaaba riding a camel and touched the black stone corner with a bent-headed stick. A cane. A cane that had a curved hook or handle. Hadith number 801 is the hadith narrated by Salama. May Allah be pleased with her. I complained to Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that I was sick. He told me to perform the tawaf behind the people while riding. I did so, and Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was offering the salah beside the Kaaba and reciting the surah starting with Wat-Tur, meaning surah number 52. So one hadith is fi'li, and the other hadith is qawli. One hadith the Prophet did, and the second hadith the Prophet said or allowed. Right? He himself was upon the camel, and he allowed Salama to ride and not walk because she was ill, because she was sick, because she was weak. The connection between the chapter heading and the hadith is clear. An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says here regarding these hadiths, وفي هذا الحديث جواز الطواف راكبا واستحباب استلام الحجر وأنه إذا عجز عن استلامه بيده استلمه بعود وفيه جواز قول حجة الوداع وقد قدمنا أن بعض العلماء كره أن يقال لها حجة الوداع وهو غلط والصواب جواز قول حجة الوداع والله أعلم. In these hadiths, or this hadith, it is a permissibility of making tawaf riding the permissibility of touching the black stone. And if a person cannot touch it with his hand, he should touch it with a stick or something, an instrument. Does that apply to a bag? If you have a little knapsack or a fanny pack or man purse, put your bag on the stone and then touch it, or at least touch it with the bag, or a selfie stick. A laser pointer, technology, an ink pen, methane, right? Etc. He says here, also in this hadith is the permissibility of saying the farewell pilgrimage. The farewell pilgrimage. Many of us may not even know or have a clue that some ulama disliked it. And they didn't like that statement. They weren't okay with that statement, the last hajj, the farewell hajj. Nobody says that's an error, and it's correct and valid to say that. واستدل به أصحاب مالك وأحمد على طهارة بول ما يؤكل لحمه وروثه لأنه لا يؤمن ذلك من البعير فلو كان نجسا لما عرض المسجد أو لما عرض المسجد له. He says here, also in this hadith, listen carefully, once again to the other chapters included in Hajj, some of the students of Imam Malik and Imam Ahmed, they use this hadith to prove is that urine and stool of edible or animals whose meat and flesh is edible, animals that can be consumed, is that their urine and their stool is tahir, it's pure, it's not najis. Any animal whose flesh is lawfully consumed, then its waste isn't najis. An animal whose flesh is consumed would include what? A camel, a cow, goat, sheep, chicken, turkey, fowl, duck, bison, horse, camel, we said that. وهكذا. They say is that if the animal's flesh is lawful to eat, then its bowl and its roth is tahir. What's the benefit of that? Why would a person want to study that or learn that? What's the benefit behind this, of that opinion? A butcher, when it's time to pray, he doesn't have to change his clothes or his boots. It's easy for you to say change your stuff, and it's not for him. I'm a butcher. I work on a farm all day. I carry animal from the pen to the this, to the hooks, to the this, step in, the animal. It gets all over the place, let alone blood. The Eid, no doubt. You go to the slaughterhouse. You have your fresh shoes on or whatever. Loafers with no socks. Naam? Huh? Sahih or not? Sahih. You might, but it may happen. Or even more than that, you work on a farm, just taking care of animals. Or you may take your child to a petting zoo. Naam? وهكذا. All right? Let alone if an animal may urinate on you, whatever the case may be. So if the flesh is lawfully consumed, then those ulama, they hold the view is that its bowl is what? Tahir. But where did they get this from? The only thing that was mentioned was the camel. Where did the other animals come from? Fadl.
If they were allowed to bring it into the haram.
واضح لكن هذا في البعير. أين الدليل على الماعز وعلى الضأن والخروف والبقر؟ وين من وين؟ من أين جاء هذا؟ قياس. هذا هو. هم قاسوا. They put the ba'ir and they say anything else that's similar to the ba'ir, the camel. And the illah, the jami', the thing that links the camel to the other animals would be jawazu akli lahmihi, the permissibility of eating its flesh. Also, a wild, undomesticated donkey is also lawful to eat, in contrast to the domesticated donkey, which isn't lawful to eat. It's najis, it's haram. But if you hunted a donkey, it's what? Halal, no doubt about that. Halal tayyib. Inshallah. Naam, Sheikh? Zebra. Good question now. Is a wild donkey a zebra or other than a zebra? Now, what do you guys think? This is a good question. La shak. Obviously, we know that a zebra, many animal specialists, they say in simple terms, is a wild donkey. Some say it's a donkey that hasn't been domesticated. And others may say it's a horse mixed with what? La, he fell for the trap. A donkey and a horse is a mule, not a zebra. And the world of difference between the what? The two animals, a mule and a zebra. Now, so some people say that the zebra is actually himar wahshi. Or are they different species? Is there a donkey which is undomesticated, which isn't a zebra? What you guys got on that? That's a very interesting question. Al-Muhim, if it is or it isn't, one could possibly make qiyas and say that the zebra is kal himar wahshi, in which its flesh can be eaten. Hakadha. Other animals as well. All right, so that's the first view. And then we said that the fa'id of that is a butcher or the Eid. You're going somewhere, except a goose. You're going to the park for a walk. You want to go to the lake. You want to throw breadcrumbs to the geese with your little son. Skip rocks, whatever. And you what? The geese stuff is everywhere. Right? It's time to pray. Do I have to take off my shoes? It got on my clothes. The flesh is lawful to eat, right? So no, he says that's their view. He says, وَمَذْهَبُنَا, and obviously the proof of that is what you mentioned, Hanan Aslam, is that if its urine and excrement was filthy, it wouldn't be allowed into the masjid. And if the camel is walking around, riding around, in most cases it's going to relieve itself. It's going to relieve itself. وَمَذْهَبُنَا وَمَذْهَبُ أَبِي حَنِيفَةَ وَآخَرِينَ نَجَاسَةُ ذَلِكَ. As far as our school, the Shafi'is, and the view of Imam Abu Hanifa and others, then they hold the view is that those things are impure, is that they are not clean. They cannot touch your clothes without you washing them. You cannot pray with the traces of them on you, etc., etc. And it's very important, we should already know this, is that in Islam, just because a thing is dirty or nasty or gross, it doesn't mean that it's Islamically najis. Who would want cow urine on their clothes? Who would want goose droppings or duck droppings on their clothes or their shoes? Nobody. But it doesn't mean that it's najis, shar'an. And there's a world of a difference between what's gross to you and what is gross to Allah, which is filthy and impure, especially when it's time to pray or washing your clothes or buying and selling, whatever the case may be. You guys understand? All right. So the scholars, they differ on that. Nawawi, he then says, وَهَذَا الْحَدِيثُ لَا دِلَالَةَ فِيهِ لأنه ليس من ضرورة أن يبول ويروث في حال الطواف وإنما هو محتمل وعلى تقدير حصوله ينظف المسجد منه. No, he then says, and this is strange, he says, and this hadith has no proof whatsoever for that opinion that it's najis, that it isn't najis. And that's because it's not a must that the camel would urinate and defecate in the masjid. It's not a must. He says that it isn't what? A must. Is that likely or unlikely? You see people who drive horse buggies, they have a what? Automatically there. The chances of the horse sitting still, it's a crowd, it can't move, it's going to what? It's going to follow the fitrah. Horse or the animal is going to follow the fitrah. Not like the human being who may hold it, I'm shy. It's like a baby, it's just going to what? Follow the natural way. So the chances of the camel being in the masjid without that happening is highly unlikely. No, he says, just because the camel was allowed in the masjid, it doesn't mean that it what? It took place. He says, and if it did take place, then the masjid is to be cleaned from it. كما أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم أقر إدخال الصبيان الأطفال لعل الأصاب والأطفال عندك والأطفال أو ممكن الصبيان الأطفال المسجد مع أنه لا يؤمن بولهم بل قد وجد ذلك ولأنه لو كان ذلك محققا لنزه المسجد منه سواء كان نجسا أو طاهرا لأنه مستقذر. No, he says is that if that took place, then the masjid is to be cleaned. It doesn't mean that it's pure, it's tahir. Just like the Prophet allowed children to come to the masjid, little babies, little small children to come to the masjid, and they may have an accident in the masjid. And if they had an accident in the masjid will be cleaned. So just because children are allowed to the masjid doesn't mean that their urine is tahir or their stool is tahir. There's no his argument. He says, regardless whether it's pure or impure, then it's mustaqdar. It's, like we said, gross. Something nasty and dirty that we would consider. Moving forward, and obviously the discussion of the animals whose urine or stool is or is not pure is a different place. This is just a side fa'idah, a side deduction. Everyone understand this or not? That would be studied in the kitab of Tahara. Ahsant. So, based off of that, what we've learned, and the view of those who say that it is pure, that would mean that that which a cat leaves behind is what? Najis. Can't eat cats. Cats are hunters, from the best of hunters. They have teeth, fangs, or canines that they use for hunting. So if a cat urinated on your clothes or sprayed on your clothes, then that would have to be washed. Also based off of that, a pigeon. If a pigeon went on your car or your clothes, based off of that view, it would be tahir. Yujuz aklu pigeon, ya akhi. Right? Pigeon can be consumed. Many people love pigeons. It's a delicacy in different Middle Eastern countries. Hammam. Along with, what else do they have? It's another name they have for them. It's like doves. No, swallows, tiny. Something else they call them too. The little small little birds that they like. We were in our culture, quails. There you go. That's right. That's right. Quail. Jazakallah khairan. Some say pigeon, some say quail. Similar to a Cornish hen, even though a Cornish hen is bigger and meatier and juicier. But the concept of a what? A small chicken, small bird, right? And that's a tremendous benefit, especially if you live in a city. Pigeons, what? No doubt about that, right? All right. But cats, of course, dogs, etc., is all najis. Then he says, قوله في طوافه صلى الله عليه وسلم راكبا لأن يراه الناس ويشرف ويسألوه هذا بيان علة أو لعلة ركوبه صلى الله عليه وسلم وقيل أيضا لبيان الجواز وجاء في سنن أبي داود أنه كان صلى الله عليه وسلم في طوافه هذا مريضا وإلى هذا المعنى أشار البخاري وترجم عليه باب المريض يطوف راكبا فيحتمل أنه طاف راكبا لهذا كله. He says, is that it states in another part of this hadith, is that he did this for the people to see him and for him to be high above and for them to ask him questions. Like a stage, like a minbar, a pulpit. He wanted to be high so they could say, that's the messenger of Allah. Let us ask him about hajj. Let's ask him about tawaf. Let's ask him about inheritance. Let him ask us about writing a will. And that's when the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Khudu anni, take your lessons from me. Learn your rituals from me. Because I'm unsure if I'll meet you next year. And obviously the Prophet ﷺ, he intuitively knew that his mission was complete. And that his time on this earth with the Sahaba was coming to a near. All right? And that obviously, like the minbar, the recommendation of the leader to be high above. And the power of being seen and heard. Seen and heard is always going to be more powerful than just being heard. Or just being seen without being heard. Khairan, inshallah. There is, so that's why he rode when he made tawaf. Others say is that the Prophet ﷺ was sick. He was ill. As it states in Sunan Abi Dawood. And that was the chapter heading of Imam al-Bukhari with regards to a sick person making tawaf. So some say that he was sick, and some say he wanted to be seen, and some say it was a combination of both. Wallahu ta'ala alam. He then says, and the other fawaid in Sahih Muslim, not mentioning the word in here in Sahih Bukhari, he says here, فيه دليل على استحباب استلام الحجر الأسود وأنه إذا عجز عن استلامه بيده إلى آخره استلمه بعصا ونحوها ثم قبل ما استلم به وهذا مذهبنا. He says to touch it with a stick and then kiss the thing. That's the madhab of the Shafi'is. No, it says إنما أمرها صلى الله عليه وسلم بالطواف من وراء الناس لشيئين أحدهما أنه سنة النساء التباعد عن الرجال في الطواف والثاني أن قربها يخاف منه تأذي الناس بدابتها وكذا إذا طاف الرجل راكبا وإنما طافت في حال صلاة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ليكون أستر لها وكانت هذه الصلاة صلاة الصبح والله أعلم. The Prophet ﷺ, he told Salama to ride from and be behind the people for two reasons. Reason number one is that women should be far from men. Women should be far from men. Nawawi, the 7th century, Shafi'i, Shami. Okay? So someone who says, the one who says that the men and women should be separated, they shouldn't be mixed up, he's a Wahhabi, he's Wahhabi filth, he's brainwashed, he's Wahhabi keva, then they are very ignorant of history. Nawawi wasn't obviously a Wahhabi. Before Muhammad ibn Wahhab was even thought of. And he says that the sunnah, listen, the sunnah of women is what? A taba'ud. Remoteness from men. In areas of ibadah, worship. In which Allah's name is being what? Remembered. The Quran is being recited. Still what? Keep the distance. If there was a time in which the shaitan was further away, if it was a time in which the heart was softest and closest to Allah, it would be where? During the ibadah, during the hajj, so let alone, if that's the case with worship, what do you think about a birthday party, a graduation party, work, college? And it's not just you see someone like the supermarket, you go. No, you're going in systematically every single day with Rebecca. You see her every single day. Her shoes, her perfume, what pocketbook she has today, no doubt about it. She switched it up. She gotta die. Okay? Right? Her outfit, wahakadha. That's a fact. So it's not the same as hit and miss. You go somewhere, oh, it's free mix in there. No, you're sitting with her. Let alone the fact that you may have a class project with Rebecca. Okay? The teacher assigns you, what? Rahaman and what? Rebecca. Rahaman and Rebecca, you guys work on a project together. Wedded or not? Possible or not? هذا هو. Allah musta'an. طيب, you work out. Maybe she may be your trainer. She's strong. And she's a top-notch trainer, no doubt. You want to get in shape? Your wife complaining about your stomach? Right? So the point is that if there's supposed to be segregation, if there's supposed to be space in places of worship, then what about places of laughter? Places of dunya? Places in which the reminder is what? Obviously, shaitan is going to what? He's going to pounce harder and faster. So look at this speech here, and so many people, they talk, Allah musta'an, so much trash. They're so ignorant of history, of the pedigree of scholars, and anything that they don't agree with, or anything that's beyond their realm of understanding, they just blame it on Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. That's a fact. Anything that their minds cannot grasp is what? Wahhabi. Right? If I'm making this up, it's a fact. Right or wrong fact. In many countries, something that Imam Ahmad talked about, Abu Hanifa talked about, but they don't know about it. They're ignorant of Abu Hanifa's statement. Claiming to be Hanafis, they say what? He's Wahhabi. Allah musta'an. So women should be far from men for obvious what? Obvious reasons. And people who say, I'm not looking, or oh, it doesn't bother me, or oh, I'm not even interested in Rebecca. She's not my type. I don't even like women from her race, or her hair is too this, or her, okay, sure. The people who talk like that are the ones, Allah musta'an. Allah guide Rebecca to Islam. Allow one of you brothers to marry her. طيب, moving forward. He says, when the tawaf is made, men and women should not be what? They should not be close together. And the second reason why he told her to stay behind is for the people not to be harmed or annoyed by her animal. Stomped, kicked, bitten, camels bite, camels spit, let alone other things that may happen if a person is too close to a camel. You ever seen a camel in real life? Anybody?
I've ridden a camel.
You rode a camel, mashallah. You guys ever eat camel meat?
Of course.
You did, and we know that from Medina. You had it? Where'd you have it at? Medina, mashallah. You guys ever had camel meat in America? I can brag. Alhamdulillah. I don't have to be humble about that. La ya akhi, no Amazon. We've had camel meat that was halal tayyib, tender, in the United States of America. You know where? Minnesota, the Somalis. Somali connection.
But today, Sheikh, when you make the tawaf, everybody is together.
So crowded, overcrowded. So there's so many different rulings which are unfortunately obsolete. And these are from the problems of the overcrowding of hajj. As far as people who have to make hajj, that's one thing. But we're talking people who make hajj what? Every year. A whole group comes back every year. That's a mushkila. Let alone, and I don't want to open up no cans of worms, is it the sunnah? Is it permissible for a woman to make hajj more than once? Is that even a sunnah, let alone permissible? And for obvious what? Reasons. You've done the job, you've went there, you've exposed yourself, men bumping, lift up your face, what? Khalas. You stay home. There's no need for you to do that again. But we don't want to what? Open up a can of worms right now tonight. I'm with him. What's important is I want to take this time out to thank those Somali brothers, and may Allah give them the food of Jannah. Ameen. For giving us camel meat in the United States. They say it came from New Mexico. Tayyib. All right, moving forward. He says here, and the reason why Salama made the tawaf when the Prophet was making a salah was for it to be astar, for her to be even further away from the men and screened even more. Screened and protected even more. And the prayer that the Prophet made was Fajr, was Salatul Subh. All right, we want to stop here tonight. Please don't forget, guys, about the 28th of this month, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be speaking on interest-based loans and traditional mortgages in light of the Quran and Hadith Part 2. So make sure you join us for that. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Wa jazakumullahu khairan.